The time to build is upon us.
With great power comes great responsibility.
You know the greatest danger facing us. Ourselves. Irrational fear of the unknown.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This is the Superhuman Academy podcast.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me again. I'm excited to play around, and well, I guess play around might be too flippant. Do whatever we do today. So thanks for coming on and hanging out.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I feel like playing around is perfect. It sounds
Okay.
fun. Let's do it. Let's play
Cool.
around.
Where would you like to
Yeah.
start?
Well, actually, I'd like to flip that question to you. What's alive for you right now? What's going on? I read through some of what you sent over and was really intrigued because I think that's only happened to me one other time where someone responded in ways that and whoever's listening might not follow. I had sent you a questionnaire, and I really loved your responses because it felt like this place that I feel like a lot of people may want to get to, where they've actually kind of gotten maybe a little bored too with playing all the different characters and all the different ways that we kind of run around and amused ourselves. And yeah, something about it reminded me of, I think this is from Carlos Castaneda's work, but this idea of, you can go in all these different rooms in the mansion, but what about when you leave it entirely? And what does that look like? And can you do that while still in human form? And again, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And I'm really intrigued by all that. So yeah, I'd love to hear what's present for you.
What's present for me? I have a slight warm sensation in my throat from swallowing too many pills at one time. Supplements, okay. They're just took a lot of supplements at one time. Realized that sounded a little strange. Too many at once, and so now I've got this tingle in my throat. That's present for me. What else is present for me? Yeah, I'm a little bit wired. I typically kind of fast on Wednesdays. Not the whole, like, just I skip breakfast and usually do a late lunch, so just have a longer period of time without food than usual. So I'm usually very well fed, and yeah, just a combination of events today has left me in a state where I'm feeling kind of wired, which is not my usual. I don't particularly love feeling wired, but that's where I am, so I'm embracing it, I suppose. I'm giving it a hug like I might hug a porcupine, kind of like a tentative. But that's where I'm at. What about you?
Yeah. I was really wired the last couple of days, and today I'm just,
You're very
you know,
zen.
I'm
Yeah.
very just, where do you want to go? Which I am embracing by laying down a lot. I was laying down before this call. I was laying down about an hour before that. That's why I think when we hopped on, I said good morning, even
Yeah,
if it's
you say
11:30. Just like,
you
yeah,
just woke up.
I just
Yeah.
needed some more rest today, and really feeling into and enjoying that. So yeah, that's what's present for me. Yeah.
Well, we're creating quite the polarity between the two of us, I suppose.
Yeah, the two sides of the coin. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm curious really to know, so it's funny, lots of times people call me a coach, and I actually never refer to my work like that, and it's one of the
Hmm.
smaller aspects of what I do, in the sense that I don't do a lot of one-on-one work, and mostly just I give talks and I write books. So I was curious because you wanted today to kind of be a coaching session, and yet at the same time I'm wondering why, what you feel could use coaching, if we're going to use it.
Sure.
I think of my work as the way it works, as far as I can tell, is that people sort of call me to them at specific, usually, or rather than calling me, they're calling information to themselves through me.
Mhm.
So that's where I get curious when I meet with someone, especially someone saying that they're interested in doing something like that.
Yeah.
So what is that? Where is that for
Yeah, sure.
you? And
Yeah, let's
yeah.
throw out coaching. Really what I enjoy most is I like to experience people, and I like to experience people experiencing their experience. How many times can I use that word in a sentence? Um, like
Mm.
I I like to step into somebody else's perception as much as I can, and then see what it's like. And
Mm.
when possible, if somebody's also experiencing me, then I can experience myself through somebody else, and that's very interesting. Because one of my friends loves the quote, uses it all the time. Like, you can't read the label from inside the jar. That idea. And so I like to interact with people who are outside the jar, and my frame of reference being the jar, and get to learn something about my own frame of reference from that when I can. So that would be interesting to me. You are just, I can tell by the look on your face, experiencing reality very differently from how I am right now. I think part of it's just, me being wired, you being very zen. So that's already a difference in experience. But yeah, I'm curious, how does court experience life? How does court experience me? How does court experience itself?
Well, tell me first about your jar. You talked about your jar. What's your jar?
Yeah, I would consider my jar to be like my the lens through which I see everything, which I can't see the lens, right?
Mm.
Um, and over time, I've seen more and more of the lens because I've gotten to, you know, kind of step into other people's perspectives, and then I can see it. But then, even then, I'm looking through a lens to look through their lens, right? So it's very meta, but you can kind of keep stepping back, and I keep trying to find an angle of it that I haven't seen before. Because, well, it's
Mm.
fun, frankly. I like to have that addition to my experience, and it changes the way that I perceive everything.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, well, and I guess the projections themselves tell you so much, right? A lot of what you were saying before sounded a little bit like that idea that, this is God talking to self, trying to understand self. This is self trying to
Yeah,
understand self.
sure. Mhm.
Um, but the projections, right? Kind of the projections, in other words, what you see on the screen in front of you and that you might call your life, I think are also very indicative of that lens and the lens that you're looking out of, as you put it. Um, but yeah, it's uh, asking how I perceive you is a big question. I I don't have a clear perception of you. I'm meeting you in this moment right now as what you're showing me in this moment. So I think that's also part of when you consider what someone's really asking is what also how much are they showing? What is it that they're actually is there anything, right? In your case, maybe there's not. Maybe there's nothing that you wanna look at. Maybe it's more just this open kind of curiosity about whatever is in front of you and how it's unfolding. Is that right in terms of my understanding of what
Sure,
you're
yeah,
saying?
it's kinda like, I kind of imagine myself like a character exploring an island. I don't know why
Mm,
island comes to mind, but let's say island.
mhm,
And it's a magical island, and it's an island, it's like the labyrinth that changes, the walls change, the positions and everything like that.
mhm,
And my experience of it is, like, the more I explore the island, the more that the walls within that explored territory become rigid, and then it's like, "Oh, yeah, I know how the path goes here," and I've gone through that path enough, then it's stopped changing for me. And so in order to find an area where the paths change, I have to go outside of my explored territory, and then it's like, "Oh, okay, so paths change here," but then, it gets harder and harder to find, like, "Okay, nope, I've been here." A lot of the paths, like, end up looping back to themselves, and I'm like, "I think I'm going somewhere new," and then I end up at the same spot, and so, like, "Shucks, okay, well, I gotta try
mm,
to find another way out of my frozen portion of the labyrinth," and I find
mm,
the way that I typically experience that is conversations like this. I'm connected with somebody who, um let's just say, is a more adventurous adventurer than maybe the average. And so
mm,
maybe you've explored more of the island than me. Maybe you're on a different island altogether, I don't know. Um, but maybe you can show me parts of the island I haven't seen. And so
mm. Well, it's
we'll
interesting
see.
how you talked about the island having walls. And while you were talking, I was reminded of a thought that occurred to me the other day of, everyone on these yellow brick roads, and just how curious a phenomenon that is. I I think you are the island, I mean, your
Mhm.
mind and the mind, maybe if that's one, I think that's one easy way for us to kind of maybe talk about it is sort of your relationship also too with the mind. But something else came up while you were talking about the island. Yeah. Well, yes, 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 and the character. So I am fascinated by exploring characters, right? And just the characters we play. And I think it's quite revealing that we use the word person to say I'm this kind of person or I'm that kind of person. Person comes from ancient Greek mythology where they were the masks they wore
Mm.
in the
The
theater.
persona. Mhm.
They were the persona, yes.
Mhm.
And so life becomes curious again if you're in that standpoint of sort of watching yourself, the
Mhm.
characters you're playing, right? And we're all playing them because in this dimension, to some degree, you're playing them. Uh, and then the moment where what happens, I think that's the space that you might be referring to of almost when you step off the island and you
Mhm.
step out of the character and how that can affect things. And I've had pretty phenomenal experiences myself and a lot of the people who've worked with me too of essentially removing the mask and
Mhm.
what that looks like in terms of other masks you decide to don after, or uh, staying for a little bit in that in between space where you're not wearing it. And that can feel very jarring to a lot of other humans. So,
Mhm.
uh, it's a fun game.
Is
Yeah.
that where you're at right now? Are you in the in between, or are you wearing a mask right now?
I think to a degree, in situations like this, there's always a little bit of the persona, the character, and there's a really clear realization at the same time that I'm not the character. It's
Mhm.
both. It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does this character have a name or um, like
Well,
a stat sheet of like, here's the what does that look like?
this character is the one that writes the books and gives the talks
Mm.
and
Oh, okay.
goes as a guest on podcasts and does all
Yeah.
of that. It's that character. For you play characters of husband, of father, and these
Mhm.
feel very real, and in a certain sense, they very much are.
Yeah, sure.
And yet, there's also this underlying sense of we're none of that, and we're all of that, and
Mhm.
maybe you're all the characters. Maybe you're the character that's playing in front of your eyes right now.
Yeah. Is it possible for me to talk to the in-between court, who
The in
probably
between.
doesn't go by that name either?
Go for it.
Well,
Ask whatever you want.
what does
Let's
she
see what
sound
happens. Let's see what happens.
like? Well, how does she or it or they or whatever, think about themselves? If think is the right word. We kinda lose language, don't we, when we get into
Right, right, right. Who is self? I mean, I can tell you, maybe it would help to tell a story. I have had a number of experiences where there was a sense of, I guess, merging with everything.
Mhm.
And there's one I'm thinking of maybe sharing it in the third book. I haven't written about this one, but this happened actually on the heels of a lot of really intense meditation, and I had been studying different fields of especially science, trying to get to not just a deeper understanding of of what we're talking about, but specifically because I wanted to alter brainwave frequencies at will. I wanted to see if I could learn how to do that. And so I had
Sure.
been studying intensely and I had been meditating intensely. And I had also been at the same time staying very much in the persona that we're talking
Mhm.
about, where the persona always has it likes to have goals. It likes to have, it likes to have visions, I think, without a vision, the people perish. So I was very much in this kind of also entertaining certain vision elements that at the time were relevant for me. This was probably 6 years ago or so. And I'm standing in front of the sea and I'm freezing because it's below 0 temperatures. And at the time again, this character would work with things like affirmations. I don't use anything like that anymore, but I was trying to conjure up some affirmations about, I am this or I am that or, I'm a whatever those ones are, right? I'm a millionaire, I'm whatever. And I'm standing in front of the sea in freezing cold weather in the south of England. And what comes through is not any of those. What comes through is I am the dolphin.
Cool.
And as I'm standing there, and I'm not on any substances, not that I'm opposed to that at all. I mean, I think
You're on a lot of oxygen.
I was like, I am the dolphin. And there was no question in my mind, nothing came up as like, why did I think that? Instead, what
Sure.
happened was my skin started to feel as if it were being enveloped in the skin of the dolphin.
Uh-huh.
And then it was, I am the sea, but I was the undulation of the sea.
Yeah.
And then I am the flying. It was I am the bird, but it was really I am the flying itself.
Uh-huh.
And then it was, I'm the homeless man I passed on the street this morning. And I was him. And I
Mhm.
could feel him in every cell. I felt
Mhm.
him. I felt I was him. And it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it collapsed on itself. And the message that came through was, I am no thing. I am nothing.
Mhm.
And the sense of bliss and euphoria and peace that overtook my entire being was so intense that I could have stayed out. I had no, I was just, I was merged. I was merged. And I was experiencing this thing that maybe, we here refer to as Satori or by many names.
Yeah.
And I could have stayed out there forever. All sensation of cold had completely left my body. I didn't realize so much that I was crying as I was, again, crying. It was just all of it
Yeah, yeah.
was very, and so I started having experiences like that probably about, yeah, I'd say 7 years ago. And I've had some that have lasted, I've had one that's lasted for 2 days, which at the end of that, since you're asking for the one in between, at the end of that, there was a message that came through that said, if you stay like this, you'll never be relatable to anyone ever again. And I
Yeah.
had to decide whether I cared about that. I wrote about that one a little bit in my second book, Give Yourself Permission. And I think ultimately people come to me thinking that they're coming to change character and they want to know how I've done certain things, how I've been, all the things. I mean, we could list accolades if you want, but all the things that have occurred for me in my life and that I've experienced. That the persona and the characters, and I've lived many characters. I often say I lived so many lifetimes in this life.
Mhm.
So, which one do you want? And I am willing to show up as different ones because I know I'm not any of them, and it's sort of like being the jester in the court. So,
Yeah.
that's as far as I can tell you from maybe that's an answer to your question.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I've been there. Um, I like to call them identity commitments,
Mm.
and I've noticed that the fewer of them I make, the more peace I experience. And so it was funny what you said about affirmations, like the I am this, I am that. And it's like all of those are identity commitments. They all like lock oneself to something. And
Mm.
like when you do that, you say no to everything else. And there's beauty in that too, of like collapsing the wave function, so to speak, and being in one place, one time, one thing. But it's like you get all of it, right? And when you are no thing, you get everything and nothing at the same time. It is weird how it works, right? It's like there's not words to put to it, but it's an experience. Sounds like experience that
Mm.
you've had. I've had. Some people
Well,
have had.
Once you collapse the wave function, you can uncollapse it by removing your
Yeah.
attention and going back to the wavelet. I love it. It's like science with all the advancements. We've kind of finally come to this one word that I think is so cute, this wavelet, right? It's like
I've
you go
never
from
heard of it.
molecules.
That's cute.
Yeah, you go from it's so
Wavelet.
cute. It's like they went to molecules and then they went to, I mean, we're like atoms and then, neutrons and electrons and then it's quarks and bosons and leptons and all this really fancy terminology. And then it's just like they're just wavelets,
Wavelets.
right?
Yeah.
Like everything is just this transmission of light apparently. And so it's a very curious phenomenon. I mean, right, the chair you're sitting on is no more solid than you are. It's
Mhm.
got its particles are speeding about at the rapidity of express trains. So, where does that leave us in terms of
Mm.
the nature of reality, going back to the very beginning of this conversation? Yeah, it's curious. It's fun.
It's
I
a
think
wavelet.
I think the whole particle wave thing is really fun. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to create something. It's fun to say, I've got a vision for something. It's fun to experience the bringing that formless into form, which is essentially also just what you are. It's just
Mhm.
it's delightful when you experience it as again, this sort of game, I guess, that this one intelligence is playing with itself in countless, untold forms.
Mhm. So what is the you that you're choosing to be right now really excited about and having fun with, delighting in?
Oh. Oh, well, the character right now, I mean, and it is me, obviously. It's an expression of I think the formless is always looking for ways to express through form. So the formless is very clear with me about how it wants to express through me. It gives me very kind of clear messages and steps, I guess. Right now, one of the things that I'm really excited about building with my team is just the second book. It's been kind of skyrocketing over the last months, and we're seeing it's funny because I thought at first, "Oh, I'll write a third book," because a book is like a snapshot of your consciousness in any given moment. It's like taking a Polaroid of whatever you were thinking then, and it's changed so dramatically since, even the publishing of the last book. Yet there's still so much that I love in there. There's pieces of it that I feel like, "Oh, man, if I had if an earlier version, right, an earlier character of me had gotten this, that would have been really fantastic." So anyhow, realize, well, we're just gonna focus on the second one, and it's been really fruitful. It's been really exciting. I love the places it's going. It's just kind of, I see every day from all over the world, engagement, lots of engagement with this book. So very excited about that. Yeah.
Mhm. Are there any practices that you have that, you have found that have really opened up your experience of consciousness?
Get with yourself. you know,
What does that mean?
um, uh, I tell people all the time, I say, it's probably one of the most powerful things you can do is just relax, just go with the horizontal, you know. We are very much trained and entrained into the idea that we gotta kinda run and we gotta make it happen and, all this stuff, and uh and while that's again, can be really fun, I love action. I mean, like I said, normally I'm really wired like you today. I was just like, I'm also beginning my cycles and just like, I'm just gonna go lay down and screw
Sure.
that. I'll talk to Colin at 11:30, and then I've got another interview after this in a couple hours, and I'm like, I probably won't do much else, um, but I feel that, yeah, when we just relax, which seems so well, it's not counterintuitive at all. It's counter societal, right?
Mhm.
It kind of rails against a lot of the messages that we get. But the beauty of it is when you relax, you within instants. I mean, if you go lie down, for example, for about 30 seconds to a minute, you're already likely, unless you're really, really in a state where your amygdala is very activated, within about a minute, you are going to start to relax your brainwave frequency. So you're going to start to go from, say, you were in high beta and you were
Mhm.
running all around, you're going to go in mid beta, low range beta, right? Within minutes, you could be accessing alpha very easily. And the more you practice this non practice, the more you can start to just calm those frequencies. And once you calm the frequencies, obviously, and you're moving into things like, alpha or theta, eyes wide open, there you have access to a lot of people's things like catecholamines, which are vital for learning and memory. You have access to all sorts of things that are basically being released within your bloodstream that allow you to be more creative and to be more resourceful. So again, it's a non-practice, it's a non-doing, but I say just let's just chill, you know? Another thing that I'll often tell people is like yawning and laughing. I think they're the two most powerful meditations that exist. So, just go yawn for about 30 seconds. If you do it with other people too, you're releasing oxytocin and serotonin and all sorts of feel good bonding and socially yummy,
Problem with yawning
and
is if I start yawning, I can't stop.
well, see, even better. That really tells you something right there. You should be doing, it's kind of funny. People will say to me too, they'll say, "Oh, I just don't have time for that," or, all this kind of stuff, which
Sure.
is funny. I removed the word busy from my lexicon, I
Me
think about
too. Yeah,
like
same.
6 or 7 years ago. I was just like, I'm not using that word anymore.
Yeah.
And people always tell me, they'll say, "Oh, you must be so busy. I can't believe, you got this huge body of work, all this stuff." And I just say, "Oh, I'm the least busy person you know." That's how I
Oh,
answer that every time. I say I'm the least busy person you know.
mhm,
And I think we're not meant to be, right? We're not meant to be sort of flooding our time with just action that is not, when you asked me earlier and you didn't put it this way, but my response was the formless and how it wants to move through my form, right? It's like I need to get quiet enough, and I don't necessarily mean in stillness and meditation, holding a mudra and chanting a mantra. I mean, I need to get quiet enough in who I am to hear what it is trying to express, what it wants to express through me. And
mhm,
so, for example, when I talked to you about the non-practice practice of just lying down, that's how I do client summaries. That's how I give written interviews. I just go lie down, turn my phone on airplane, and I dictate what comes through. And what comes through is
mhm,
always just marvelous. I did that for parts of the second book. I'll do that entirely for the third book. So, that's one of the things that I would say. I don't really like giving people, one of the things I also often will tell others is, I don't have your answers, right? And I don't propose to give you 5 steps to anything. In fact, if anyone is doing that, maybe it's, good to run in the opposite direction, not walk, but run. So I don't have that for anyone, but I've learned to source it for myself. And so I think when you're with someone who sources that way, you feel it, and when you feel it, it's like your mirror neurons get activated and your being gets activated to become more of that, to step more into whatever is true for you. So, yeah, yeah. Although there are things, let's laugh for a second because there are things like I shake all the time, like get that shit out of my body,
oh,
whatever
you
is
mean,
like
like,
stuck,
just burning
stagnant
off that
energy.
excess stuff? Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
shake, I like to get a lot of movement outside. I love to dance when I'm not really even realizing I'm dancing. That's the best kind of dancing. I love
Mhm.
to sing. I used to sing a lot in public and, stopped that. So, but I'm coming back into just my voice, the expressions of that. Yeah, I've got lots of things that I like to do.
Yeah,
Those are the things that work for me in terms of just bringing me back. Like I said, it's not just silence. Getting with yourself is not just silence. Getting with yourself is what's truest for me right now in any given moment. Me being the expression that you're wanting to live into, if that makes sense.
mhm, sure. At the very beginning of this call, you mentioned that the way I responded to the survey was strange. Can you what was strange?
I didn't say it was strange.
That's
If you
true.
go back and
Put
listen
that
to
word in
it,
your mouth.
I didn't say
You
strange.
said
I
only
said it
one
was
other person had
intriguing. I
responded,
said it was
something
intriguing.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the word I used was intriguing. I have only had one other person who's come to me who has immediately, when it came to me, already known that they were sort of disinvested from the role play. And I
Mhm.
love that. But, I also love those questions. Those questions, I know you didn't like a lot of them, but those questions I think came out. I started asking them that I think I put that together like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And what I love about it is it tells me so much about how either removed someone is from this intelligence, this kind of great intelligence that moves through them, and how they live it. Um, it tells me a lot about whether people realize that everything's happening right now or not. It tells me a lot about what kind of brainwave frequencies they might be in. If a lot of those are driven, if a lot of their answers are driven by fly, fight, freeze, I'll be able to.
Sure.
I'll understand how much of the time they're spending there. I'll start to see what visions they have. And you mentioned something interesting when you responded to me, which was this idea of like not planning for the future. Something I don't actually believe in a future per se or a past. I I, I think it's all happening now, which is sort of
Mhm.
the stuff that I think Einstein was sort of alluding to when he talked about spooky stuff at a distance and when he was, entertaining some of the concepts that were emerging toward the end of his death. Anyhow, all that to say, I actually loved your responses because most of the time people will come to that eventually in the work that they do to me with me is
Mhm.
something along the lines of, oh man, like what happens when we kind of leave the stage, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And what happens when, and you didn't allude to this in your writing, but what happens when something deeper that's guiding everything else anyway starts to really kind of take over? And what does life look like then? And yeah, I get a lot of insight from people's responses to that. So I got a lot of, I felt very intrigued and, um, I also felt there's a part of you, and this may be completely inaccurate, but it almost felt like a part that's hiding, which is interesting because when you talked at the beginning of like running around the island and the walls, and
Mhm.
I don't know, something came up there too, and
I mean,
um,
it does
I don't know
invoke
how to
the
interpret
hide and
that.
seek, so maybe maybe there's something hiding and I'm
Who
looking
knows?
for it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and maybe
Well, I'd
it's
like
this
to think
deeper.
so too,
Yeah,
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
think so 'cause, um, I have this, uh, understanding of God or divinity of being in this delightful game of hide and seek, and you
Oh yeah.
referenced this at the beginning of the, like, self-seeking self thing. Um, I don't know, I think that's what you said. Sorry if I put that in your mouth. Um, yeah, so is there some of me hiding? And my answer is I hope so. 'Cause if I've already found everything, then that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, and if
But
you
if
have to
if
face
you have any
everything.
insights on where that other parts of me are hiding, please share because 'cause I'd be excited to explore.
Well, there's such a devastating glory in kind of seeing all of it, right? And if you have to accept that it's all you, you know. I mean, it's kind of the Godhead theory, which I personally think makes the most sense of a lot of the ones I've heard, which is essentially this is one intelligence, right? This is one intelligence expressing in, as I said earlier, untold countless forms. And so if that's the case, you have to face the fact that it's all you. And that's a very stark it's a staggering staggering realization that I think only part of our conscious can wrap itself around anyhow. So, and I guess, that's the whole thing, right? If we go back to the idea of it all being divine play or lila, right? It's like, oh, this is just the most fabulous spectacle you've ever seen. Like
Leela, I haven't
Shakespeare.
heard that before.
Yeah, so from the more ancient traditions, lila, the idea of the creation of the universe and the purpose, right? Someone asked me the other day, they said, what do you think's the purpose of all this? And I was like, I just think it's play. I think it's just we're acting out all sorts. I mean, it's just the most epic saga you've ever seen, right?
Mm.
And if you take that on, then you have to say, well, then all of the characters are fabulous and integral to this design, right? You don't watch a movie or a play and say, "Oh my god, that character." Well, unless the character's playing their part very poorly, which you do see in real life as well, but
Yeah,
you
but
don't.
you wouldn't take Darth Vader out of Star Wars, that's what you're saying.
Right, and well,
Yeah.
yes, that's your second Darth Vader, reference, by the way, I love it. You're
Is
gonna
it?
have to y
Is
y
it
well,
really?
you mentioned something about the Force. I thought that's where you were going in that last answer to the
Oh.
Force,
Oh, okay.
the dark forces or something. Anyway,
Oh, you
that
might have heard
reminded
me
me of
say the dark arts. I
the
lead a
dark
you
arts.
might have seen
Yeah,
that in the survey. I have
okay, yeah,
um, a group thing that I lead. Yeah, anyway.
yeah. Yeah, Defense Against the Dark Arts. Okay, that's very
Yeah,
I don't know, that's Harry Potter-ish,
it's
very,
more Harry
I like it.
Potter-ish, yeah.
Okay, right, okay, I got my references wrong, but I love it anyway, it's fun. But again, here we come to the same conclusion of like, well, you can't how that theory goes of you can't, remove part of the coin, right? You can't say, "I'm just gonna have heads or tails," because when you do that, you just get a piece of scrap metal you
Mhm,
know? And you really have to accept the fact that you're dancing all of the characters. You're everything. So again, if you kinda get into that Big Bang theory, which again, as far as I can tell from my work and from everything I've experienced in my life and from everything I've studied is the one that makes the most sense, then you sort of have to let go of your ideas of right and wrong and good and bad and, who's doing what to who and all of it. It sort of starts to disappear. And then what's left is again a way of being that is quite counter societal and quite it's the nature of also the philosopher. I was just talking Tuesday. I've started a weekly podcast called One Great Teaching, and I share just a 20-minute episode maximum where I share one great teaching that I learned over my life, how it's impacted me, and how I actually use it. And then I just do this little meditation at the end. And I was sharing the Plato's allegory of the cave, which I haven't read in 25 plus years. But, it's kind of the same thing, right? When you've stepped out into the sun and you've talked about experiencing that. And when you stepped out there, it's kind of like, oh, wait, how do you go back and tell the prisoners who are looking at the wall that there's something else? So, but again, the real imprisonment is the one we put ourselves in, and then that goes back to the mind. And the thing I'm most curious about in in my work is probably that, the mind and the what I call by many names the great intelligence. You referred to God. There's something there. We could go back there if you'd like, but yeah, yeah.
hmm. The mind. I tend to think of the mind as being very, like, the intellectual element, as opposed to, like, the heart or the gut or the body or something like that, but it
Mm.
seems like you're using it as more of an umbrella term than that.
Yeah, well, your heart and your gut are minds as well,
Oh,
So, your gut has neurocircuitry that would rival that of your cerebral
sure.
what you the gray matter that you have up here. Your heart has an magnetic field that's hundreds, if not thousands of times more powerful than your cerebral mind. So these are minds, very much. And I'm very intrigued. I've spent a lot of my spare time and my interest has gone into the nature of this mind stuff. But I find it to be a sort of disarming way. I'll often call it too, the great intelligence, or it feels like a disarming way for people to recognize that there is something greater than this, right? And when you sort of have to admit it, right? And which I love because people don't want to they may not wish to admit to any specific kind of deity or religion, and I
Sure.
totally get that. M but they have to admit that there is a force that is active within them and seemingly outside of them that is sort of running the whole show, right? So if you were actually consciously to stop and consider every second the trillions of biochemical reactions occurring in your body every second, and the fact that each one of those is in communication with every other one, so each one knows what the others are doing, you don't have the audacity to say, "Oh, let me get a 5-year plan together to make sure that all stays on track." You trust that this intelligence that's governing that's governing also the path of the planets and the rotation, the spinning of our own planet. Like, I mean, how absurd is that? We are literally spinning right now. I mean, you're not even really aware of it. I mean, we're not aware of it, right? It's just absolutely it'll take you out of here in a matter of seconds, right? To just even try to understand that. And especially when you consider the fact that we're not only spinning around on this ball of dirt, but we're in the middle of seemingly nowhere, right, in an infinite space that appears to go on forever. So yeah, I guess once you sit with some of these concepts, or even the idea that, right, you're going to spin around and you're going to see the sun again, right, like every day. Uh, when you sit with that, you have to acknowledge. Pretty much anyone would have to acknowledge. I mean, I think everyone would have to acknowledge that there is a greater intelligence at play, that you consciously, Colin, for instance, or consciously Courtney, is not guiding, instructing, forcing, controlling, whatever. We're just not we're not in charge here, right? So this, as the character, as the individual form that we're playing through. So once you acknowledge that great intelligence, and once you acknowledge as well, and I think this is the next conclusion, is it kind of knows its stuff, right? I mean, if it could do all that, it must know its stuff. So you have to kind of extend to that, as far as I can tell, in my rational approach to this. And so once you've extended to that, then once again, you have to extend to the fact that it's all good, in a sense. In other words, it's all required. It's all essential. Again, it's like the two parts of the coin. If I say I don't want the heads on it, if I say, I heard it once brilliantly put like this, if you decide that only your inhale is good and your exhale, forget about it, right? Like, just stop. You're screwed, right? So, but you could, and I remember when I heard this lecture, it was something around the lines of, like the exhale's lazy or something, right? So there can be these moments where we're like, oh, if I don't do this thing or whatever that looks like. But again, it's all essential. So yeah, going back to the question of the great intelligence, or however, I mean, there's so many different ways we could we try to name the nameless, right? And it doesn't really matter. I guess a rose by any other name is still a rose. So it's really just getting with it again, as far as I can tell.
Can I ask you a strange question?
I'm open to all questions. Let's hear it.
Okay. I think it was Joseph Campbell who said something along the lines of, "You'll find what you seek where you least want to look." I don't know if he actually said it like that, but something along those lines. Like, you can't go on the path into the forest. You have to find a dark spot in the forest, or you just jump into it, and something like that. I'm probably butchering everything, but um, do you have a sense of where your least want to look is for you right now? Where the darkest place in the forest is, where you'll find the treasure? Do you have a sense of that?
Hmm. The place I least want to look. Mm. Mhm. Mm. I guess what emerges for me is because I see it almost in images. It's like, and it's funny because the second book is it's entitled Give Yourself Permission. And it's
Mhm.
like permission to not have it look a certain way, permission to 'cause right now too, we've got this, whole campaign thing going, and there's parts of me that wanna blow it up all the time, it's like, I just wanna blow it up, but there's other parts that are excited about it, the character playing parts, um, and I guess those just have to live together. So but it's there there's these places where I'm just like, "Is that misleading? Is that" and then I come back to, "No, it's all just this play." Um, but I feel that I often go to dark places in the forest, right? Like, it's just, again, allowing all the places or all the, um, different ways that all the waves, actually, the waves that move through us, the waves that move through us and kind of just being like, "Oh, wow, I'm in that wave," like this morning, I was like, I am not gonna power through any of the stuff that I have to do. I'm just gonna go take a nap." And be with this, like, sense of heaviness because I had a real deep sense of heaviness and gravity this morning, um, which I still maybe feel a little of, like, right now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, you definitely
Yeah.
have, like, a downward pull you have this whole time, just, a weight.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah. There's a
how you're
lot of
speaking.
gravity right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because, like, right when I give a talk or something like that, the energy can be completely different, and that's where it's like, "Okay, it's all good. It's all welcome." Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Now, even weirder question, do you have a sense of where my place I least want to look might be based on the little experience you've had of me so far? Because I don't, and I'm really I'm curious if you can see it and I can't.
Well, the very first thing that comes is, um again, I often see these as images. It's the words maybe come later. It's almost like, oh yeah, okay. It's actually living through that lens that you talked about, almost as if the experience has to be filtered through a lens. And yeah, kind of this sense that you also are used to playing certain roles and that's and you clearly enjoy that. And I guess, yeah, mm, interestingly, I feel you showed up with more of this today. Uh, kind of a sense of even more openness, maybe than because I know you consider yourself a very like and you must be right because you're also talking to a lot of different people um, and very curious about what people are doing out there in the world, and maybe a lot of it is filtered through a lens. And what would it look like if Yeah, what if like I said, I think you brought a lot of that spirit today is what if and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm totally off, but that's just what I feel. That what if what if those or the lenses, right, could kind of just completely come off. What would that look like? I don't know if I don't even know the answer to that at all. That's what comes up for me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
I have no idea what that means, but I'll play with it. Maybe I'll figure it out. Okay. Hmm. Well, I
Mm.
mean, we've got 8 more minutes if you wanna spend it. I don't know where to go. Do you wanna play around? Is there anything else you wanna chat
Mhm.
about or experiences you wanna have together?
I'm open to it. I don't know if you have any other questions or if you want to dive into because it's funny your response to that was just I don't know what that means, and it was also kind of like a not sitting with it. It felt like
That's true.
just
I
kind of
think
like
you
let's
yeah,
move on. Let's move on. Like,
sure. Yeah.
do you want to end this? Like, which is fine by me totally. But I'm just saying it felt like a very quick pivot and without
No,
even a lot of
I appreciate that
consideration.
observation. I didn't even think of it that way. Hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see. To take off all the lenses. Yeah, and see, that's what I have been attempting to do in some sense, but it's kinda like I'm trying to pull glasses off my face, but the glasses are actually contacts and I can't reach them by doing this. It's like, where is it? And I grab it and then there's
Mm.
nothing there.
Mhm.
But I know there is something there. I just
Mhm.
like I don't know what it is, and my fingers don't seem to have any purchase on it. Um, so yeah, I'm kind of like in that weird state of asking people like, "Can you please tell me where this thing is so I can grab it and take it out?" And not that it's bad. I just want to know what it is. You know, what is it? What shape is it? What color, if anything, does it impose on the world? Um, and I've had trouble with that. I've asked a lot of people recently to help me with that, and I've gotten kind of, I don't know, shrug type responses. Like, "Ah." It's
Mhm.
which I accept, and it's okay. But, yeah, the way that you said that, basically, it articulates what I'm trying to do, but it doesn't articulate the how to do it. Is that fair?
Mm. That's yeah, that's good. There we go. Because it's really the way to see it is the projections, right? So this is a screen. I mean, you looking at me is a screen. It's like you're
Mhm,
looking at the screen that's in front of you. I mean, in a very real sense, that's what's happening, but also in a much deeper sense, that's what's happening.
mhm.
And the screen will actually show you, the projection will show you the lens.
Okay, help me understand that. Projection will show me the lens.
Yes, the projection will show you the lens. Um, so it's interesting. Yeah. Every single thing that's playing out in front of you is telling you something about yourself.
Mhm.
Every single thing that is playing out in front of you is telling you something about yourself. So when you look at it that way, um, the more you can kind of get with it without, so then it's a tricky game. It's almost like you're trying to catch a, you're like trying to catch a really sneaky burglar or something.
Well, it's
Uh,
like trying to catch the thing that it's like if you have the set of all things that can be caught and the set of all things that cannot be caught, and then trying to catch something that's in the set of all things that cannot be caught, which by definition you can't do, because if you could, then it wouldn't be in that set. That's how it feels. But I think
right.
what I'm trying to catch actually isn't in that set. And that's why I keep trying to catch it.
Oh my god. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I feel like anything we say, right, is pointing to something, but the real thing is just getting with it right now. What's, like I said, in any given moment in front of you. So, for instance, earlier, or right before you went into considering the question more, or considering what I was saying more about the lens, that immediate desire to be like, I'm cutting. Almost like I'm cutting here, right? So we can do this in a lot of different ways, right? We see
Mhm.
somebody and we come to immediate conclusions. It's such a shame that we do this because we're missing everything that character gets to reveal about self. So maybe just one of the things
Yeah.
that I would
Okay, hold on.
suggest, because
I think I'm getting
yes,
a Jimmy Neutron brain blast there. Uh,
yeah,
throwback.
yeah,
All right. So,
hmm
yeah, because that's not a common behavior for me, what just happened, which was like, well, okay, I guess we're done here. So the fact that that showed up is very interesting. Um, and, my sense is that was kind of a response to, okay, well, the we just hit the dead end. But there's something to that that is really interesting. I didn't ask a question. There was a point at which I stopped asking questions. Huh. And there's something to that that is important. I don't exactly have it, but there's something to that that is important.
Well, what you're, as is the case with most of us, what you're running away from and what you're searching for are both within you. And so, what was the eureka moment that kind of snapped you out for a second? I think, as far as I can tell, was the when you sit with the fact that oftentimes what doesn't match a certain um, hmm. It was when I was talking about kind of those snap judgments and almost this cutting and this there's something, and again, we just have an hour together, but there's something very deep there. There's something um, worth looking for. And again, the looking for is not outside, right? The looking for is, again, what is this projection? What is this projection showing me? And what of that am I actively hiding from in this moment? Um, and it's just a getting with it, right? Because the more you get with it, the more it just reveals itself to you. So, yeah, as far as I can tell, that's what I would say for now. Yeah.
Mm.
And maybe that 1 second when you got it, going back to that recording, just that
Mhm.
little part, because there was something right there that I felt you getting it in my body when you
Right,
responded.
yeah.
Right before you responded, I felt you got it, the thing. So, and like I said, people call information to themselves through me, so I never know what things are gonna reveal themselves, but I would, if I were you, I'd maybe consider going back to just that spot.
Yeah, that's fun.
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think, like, the nice part about all of this is that for me, this is, like I said, kind of the adventurer exploring the island, and hitting a dead end is, in one sense, disappointing, but it's also exciting because a dead end actually is a I think this is part of the thing that I'm learning in this conversation. Like, even the framing of the labyrinth, the, a dead end is an illusion, right? Like, the idea that if I run into a wall, my predisposition is to be like, "Okay, I've gotta go back." I mean, I said it at the beginning of the episode. My I go back and look for another path, but that assumes that that wall that I ran into is actually a wall that I can't pass through, which is an assumption that I didn't name and label until just now. And that's interesting. It's like, okay, that's a new part of the game. What if I didn't turn around at the wall? Maybe I'll stare at it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to dig through it. Maybe I'll go over it. Maybe I'll um, set up camp there and live next to it for a year out of. There's a lot more options, though.
Maybe
That's
you'll realize they're all wavelets. It's just a collection of
ah,
wavelets. Maybe you'll rearrange it into another form. Yeah.
those darn wavelets.
Mhm.
Hmm. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm I'm ending this call on a very intriguing note to me. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share, either with me or some people who might listen to this at some point?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
The Superhuman Academy podcast is hosted by Collin Jewett and designed and edited by Army Cinco, with original music by Joshua Schunig and voiceovers by Corey Page Schunig. That's me. You can find past episodes and resources, as well as access to the ever-growing Superhuman Academy community at superhumanacademy.com. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice.